Hello all, just wanted to let you know before the game starts that this is not a complete game. I used this game as a little playtest before playing this deck on the EDH Lounge, which you have probably watched by now already. And there's a little bit of salt going around in this game, so I know some of you enjoy that. There's nothing too dramatic or anything, it's just, it's not a complete game anyway, so just a warning before you decide to watch it, or not, as the case may be. For those of you who do decide to continue to watch, I hope you enjoy it. Karametra, God of Harvests, versus Krenko, Tin Street Kingpin, Hope of Ghirapur, and Nicol Bolas. Yeah, we'll keep this because I quite like the turn 1 Miri's Guile. Krenko starting things off and we get into one of our Enchantress cards, so that is really good. Let's go for... We can get a tapped planes with that. Yeah, I want as many planes out as possible because we do have Emeria the Sky Ruin. I think that's the name of the land. And that can start reanimating stuff, but I think it's 7 planes that we need in play. We've got 4 dual planes in the deck, and then about 5 basic planes, so we should be able to get up to 7 quite comfortably over the course of the game, because our commander can fish forests and plains out of the deck. And the Hope of Ghirapur coming out straight away. So that will be able to stop someone from casting a non-creature spell at some point during the game, or multiple times during the game. 1 mana commander, so they'll be able to replay that plenty of times, I imagine. And Krenko's already got on his goblin army going. Let's have a look at this. Miri's Guile. Alright, we've got another fetch. Eidolon of Blossoms I definitely want to get into, so let's put the lands on top, draw into the Eidolon of Blossoms. Not getting into any ramp, but we can at least... yeah, we'll shuffle up the top cards. And we'll just go for one of our dual planes. The cycling land I think we'll grab here. And this is an Enchantress build of Karametra, as you can tell by the Enchantress cards. I have played this on the channel before in 1 vs 1, but I don't think it did all that well. And the reason I'm playing it here, this is a playtesting session before I go up against the other gentleman on the EDH Lounge. And I'm just testing it to see if it works alright, because I've had to swap some things around. Like I said, it's a 1 vs 1 deck really, but I've made it more multiplayer focused. Up the curve ever so slightly. A treasure map for the Hope of Ghirapur. 1 tap and scry 1. Put a counter on it, and then if there are 3 or more counters, remove those and transform it. And you get 3 treasure tokens. And then you can sacrifice a treasure to draw a card, so not too worried about that. Krenko did not pay the echo cost on Mog War Marshal, so in comes another Goblin token. And now playing a Ring of Valakut, so be able to start buffing Krenko with that when he comes out. And the bigger Krenko is, the more tokens he'll be able to spit out. Okay, 1 going in at us, 1 going in at Nicol Bolas. I am biased towards Nicol Bolas because one of the last games we played, which you would have seen by now, I imagine, Nicol Bolas went off on us all and took about an hour to do so, but they did certainly manage to decimate all of us eventually. Now we've got a land to make there. Let's go Heliod. And we'll draw into the Enchantress's presence as well. We're really doing a good job of getting into all our Enchantress spells. So let's drop a Plains, and then we can go for Verduran Enchantress, and then we'll drop the Savannah next turn, and we'll already be up to 3 Plains. Yeah, the Emeria land won't necessarily come into play, but if it does, then we'll be glad that we concentrated on getting a bunch of Plains into play. There's a Time Twister. Yeah, well, at least we put an Enchantress card onto the battlefield. But we got rid of 2 from our hands, drew into another one in Satyr Enchanter at least, and got into the only artifact in the deck in Sol Ring, and it's the only artifact because we have Stony Silence. There aren't too many Yeah, there actually are quite a few activated abilities of artifacts in play. Might paint a target on our heads if we get down Stony Silence this quickly, though. Might concentrate on a privileged position next turn. Yeah, I don't see why we can't do that. And our opponent did activate this for the scry effect, so that gets a landmark counter onto it. Don't forget they need 3 of those. And it's not the worst wheel that Nicol Bolas could have cast, because if it was Wheel of Fortune we would have just discarded all that stuff. At least now we've got a chance of drawing into it still. A decoction. Decoction, is that how you say that? I've never seen that word before. A decoction module. Whenever a creature enters, you get an energy counter, and 4 and tap, return a target creature you control to its owner's hand. A counter goes on the Goblin thanks to the Rings of Valkus, and a Nykthos Shrine to Nyx is in play as well. Luckily for us, our opponent doesn't have any red pips on permanents he controls. A Hazoret's Monument, yeah, the Monument cycle is really good, and he's going to get to Rummage every time he casts a red spell with that. Yeah, the Goblin player is still at 6 cards in hand, so he hasn't emptied his hand just yet. Offering up the trade with the 2/2 Goblin, and the other one offering up the trade for Hope of Ghirapur. We are not going to take them up on that, and I doubt the artifact player is going to either. Oh no, they are. Are they going to sacrifice it in response is the question. No, just letting it die, so deciding to get rid of a Goblin token there. Now let's see what's on top of our library this time. A Teferi's Protection, I mean, we might end up wheeling it away. Yeah, I think I'd rather draw into Teferi's Protection. If our opponent goes for a wheel, we'll draw into it. So let's go Plains, Protection, Plains. And then we can play the Plains this turn and get up on our Plains count, as we discussed before. And then let's go Sol Ring. Oh yeah, and if we cast an enchantment here, we're going to draw into the protection anyway, aren't we? So perhaps should have gone for a Plains on top of Teferi's Protection. Oh well. We actually don't have to draw into it. Yeah, I'm actually going to leave it on top, just in case this Nicol Bolas player goes for a wheel again. Now, all of our other permanents have hexproof, and if we get into another enchantment that gives our enchantment Shroud or hexproof, then that will be every permanent on the board that we control can't be targeted. No wheel, just going in for... Yeah, this is a similar strategy by the looks of it to the last Nicol Bolas player that we played against. I don't know if this is the same player or not, but certainly going for a typical Grixis build by the looks of it. The last player wanted to storm off. Another activation on the treasure map. And a Basalt Monolith, yeah. I think it's time to drop this Stony Silence down. It's a shame to not get more use out of Sol Ring, but it did get us into the privileged position at least. Yeah, we can probably go for Mirari's Wake into Stony Silence next turn. Ring of Valkus, putting yet another counter on that Goblin. It's gone all the way up to a 3/3. And then Goblin Chieftain. And that's followed by a Rummage from the Hazoret's Monument. Goblin Chieftain is a lord, and it gives goblins our opponent controls haste. And this can be followed up by Krenko, so yeah, Krenko with Ring of Valkus on it may be what our opponent goes for. Let's see, they went for the Fervour being discarded because they fancy their odds of keeping the Goblin Chieftain in play. Now I just want to go over Nevermore. The reason Nevermore is in the deck is because we want to name things like Austere Command and Merciless Eviction. They're the two main things, really. And it doesn't look like our opponents are going to be casting Austere Command or Merciless Eviction because they're not in the right colours for that. So I think when we eventually decide to drop this, going for Ugin would be good, because Hope of Ghirapur or Nicol Bolas may well run an Ugin, and that can exile our permanents as well. So yeah, I think Nevermore onto Ugin in the next few turns would be a good idea. And our opponent went for exactly that. They've got Krenko and the Goblin Chieftain in play now, and they're going to generate some Goblin tokens when they swing in. And swinging in, creating 3 goblins. They don't enter attacking, unfortunately, for our opponent. They are spreading the damage around, though, and still offering up the trade for our Verduran Enchantress. We're going to take 3 commander damage here. And they will get 3 mana from the Nykthos Shrine to Nyx now, because they have 3 red pips in play. So if they get another creature or enchantment, something like that, into play, then Nykthos is going to start generating mana for them. Additional mana, that is. Alright, couple of planes on top, and why don't we draw into the Teferi's Protection? Apparently Nicol Bolas isn't in too much of a rush to wheel, so we'll go Plains Protection Savannah. Play the Savannah, up to 4 planes now. Then we can go Mirari's Wake. That will draw us a card and give our creatures a buff. And it will also double up our mana production, which is exactly the reason that it's in here. And then we're not going to have the mana for Teferi's Protection, unfortunately. But we'll just play out the Stony Silence anyway. I think we've done some setting up quite nicely now, so after this we need to be more careful and start holding up Teferi's Protection and probably go for Satyr Enchanter and Nevermore next turn. How much mana do we have? 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 next turn. So that's more than enough to do everything that's in our hand. A Frantic Search from our opponent, and they will get to scry 1 off of the Jace's Sanctum. That only cost them 2 mana to do that because of the Jace's Sanctum. And followed by a Ponder. Not too worried about Cyclonic Rift yet. Our opponent only has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 mana available to them. Don't forget the Signet cannot tap for mana anymore, unless our opponent can get rid of our Stony Silence. A Fact or Fiction. Let's see if they manage to make a deal with another player and get a full grip of cards dumped into their hand. I don't think we're at that point in the game. Oh, there we are. There's Ugin the Spirit Dragon. That's exactly what I was talking about. So we want to name Nevermore with that. Luckily, our opponent doesn't know that we have a Nevermore. This is targeted at the Hope of Ghirapur player. So let's see if they want to give them a full pile or not. I think they actually did give them a full pile there. Then going for the Brainstorm. So we definitely want to hold up Teferi's Protection from now on. Plenty of card draw from our opponent that turn, so they have had ample chance to try and get into answers. And perhaps Ugin the Spirit Dragon is the answer that they need. A Field of Ruin going on to the Nykthos Shrine to Nyx, and that will allow all of us to search for a basic, so we can get into a Plains here. That will shuffle our library, so we'll get to look at another 3 cards on the top with Miri's Guile. A Codex Shredder from the Hope of Ghirapur. I imagine they're just playing the only cards they have access to currently. And we now have mana held up for the Teferi's Protection as well, which might be relevant. The Goblin player has already said that they are going to be aiming towards us, which is fair enough. We are the biggest threat at the table currently, although it's worth noting that Nicol Bolas does want to play out the long game. Yeah, Nicol Bolas's Ugin the Spirit Dragon will deal with that Goblin token army no problem. A Goblin War Chief, that gives Goblins haste. I'm going to rummage again. And then a Legion War Boss as well. They may well be able to take us out of the game here. I took Ghostly Prison out of the deck and put the Sphere of Safety in. And perhaps shouldn't have gone for getting rid of Ghostly Prison for situations such as this. There's no guarantee I would have drawn into it anyway. Legion War Boss generates a Goblin token. Mentor is going on to the Goblin Chieftain. And Krenko is going to generate 5 tokens. How much damage is this? It is a lot, isn't it? I think we just have to Teferi's Protection here. And then hope for a board wipe in the top 3. Okay, in the top 3, we don't have anything really. We can shuffle up with the Wooded Foothills, and I think I might do just that. Let's play and crack the Wooded Foothills. We'll get a Canopy Vista, and we are up to 6 planes now, so we're looking pretty good on that front. We'll play our Satyr Enchanter, because we're going to play some enchantments here. We'll go for Nevermore first, because that'll leave us with more mana to cast whatever we may draw into here. And Eidolon of Blossoms. Yeah, that will get us some card draw. And a land tax. I don't think anyone controls more lands than we do, so that is only going to count as card draw from the Enchantresses. We are naming Ugin the Spirit Dragon here. I was thinking about casting our commander there, but I think if we want to get into a board wipe, we're best going for more card draw, and we'll get more card draw from Eidolon of Blossoms. Plus this way it leaves up 4 mana in case we get into a Wrath of God. Okay, another Enchantress card. Nylea, God of the Hunt. That's an indestructible to block with at least. And then Eidolon of Blossoms enters and triggers on itself. Okay, well we can put the Wild Growth onto the Scattered Groves and get even more card draw going. Just getting into some basics, unfortunately. So I think the plan here is to go for Nylea. And the Goblin player scoops for some reason. Welcome to Magic Online. Yeah, I don't know why they scooped there. They still could have gone wide on us and maybe taken us out. Well, that's unfortunate for our opponents because that is a huge game changer for them. Yeah, the Goblin player was the biggest threat to us and was a means of these 2 players getting out from underneath what we've got going on here. If they could have gone wide on us and taken us out, then it would have left those 3 to fight it out amongst themselves. So that completely changes the course of this game. We'll just get rid of some basics here. And there's the odd people that don't like the fact that I get annoyed when people scoop early on Magic Online. And I've had people say to me in the past that, you know, people have real life stuff going on and all the rest of it. And obviously that's true and that's fair enough. But I don't understand why so many people sit down for a game of Commander online and then suddenly have 1,000,001 other things to do. Oh, Notion Thief followed by a wheel. Yeah, that should get the Grixis player into some answers. So we really want to get into some kind of removal for the Notion Thief. And hopefully we can rebuild from there. Hope of Ghirapur comes down, and no one's been hit harder by the Stony Silence than the Ghirapur player, but they are just deciding to slug it out anyway. They are at 0 cards in hand thanks to the wheel, as are we. There's that Smothering Tithe again. Replenish, unfortunately. That stuff got shuffled. And there's that Emeria the Sky Ruin. That's actually of no use to us currently. So let's just go for the Smothering Tithe. Now, Smothering Tithe might actually be able to get us into a lot of mana and maybe go for something like a Genesis Wave. Well, we'll say yes, but we can't draw thanks to the Notion Thief. Oh, we're actually feeding cards to our opponent there, aren't we? Should have said no to that. But if our opponent's drawing cards, then they are activating Smothering Tithe. Let's get down Karametra as well. And we'll get into some more treasure tokens that we can't activate because of the Smothering Tithe. Might as well just say no to it correctly this time. There are some Enchantress effects that we can't say no to. Verduran Enchantress is a May effect. Eidolon of Blossoms we have to draw. And the same is true of the Satyr Enchanter. Now we're going to go all in on the Grixis player. And they can get rid of our Verduran Enchantress if they want to. We do have trample on our creatures thanks to Nylea. They've got 12 cards in hand, so hopefully for them they can actually get something going here. It's a Cyclonic Rift they want, really. And a Demonic Tutor might get it. They've got 6 mana available to them, and Cyclonic Rift, thanks to this, will only cost them 6 mana. They've got a mana floating, so if they want to do it, they're going to have to do it this turn. No, High Tide, yeah, well, that will get them into some extra stuff. Make their islands, tap for an additional blue. And then a Seething Song, yeah, definitely some kind of storm build. Like I say, I don't know if this is the opponent that I played the other day. Can't remember the username of that player. Followed by another tutor. And they've still got 2, 4, 6, 8 mana available to them. Yeah, when the Krenko player was swinging in at us, I think they got wrapped up in the chat about how these two were worried about the cards that we were playing. We were actually not that much threat to Krenko, and I'd actually go for the Grixis player before mostly anybody else, and this is exactly the reason why. See how much they did in a turn there. 4 mana available, and oh yeah, they've got the Izzet Signet available now as well, so that's 5 mana, 9 cards in hand. And let's see them wheel now. And Ignite Memories. Yeah, we've got some big stuff in hand, so there's every chance this might get rid of us, although it's not the biggest storm off that I've ever seen. We might survive. I was expecting another wheel there. We survive at 4. Not too likely that the colourless player is going to get rid of us with haste. But that knocks us down to 1 with the Notion Thief. We do have a little bit of life gain in this deck, but it's not enough to get us out of this predicament, I don't think. The Ghirapur player just slowly rebuilding by the looks of it. Yeah, I can't say I feel too badly about playing the Stony Silence if the Grixis player is the type that would have us all discard our hands. Okay, they just pointed the Codex Shredder at us and got rid of our Replenish, which we weren't too worried about casting anyway. Let's go for the Sol Ring first, and we'll have to get down this Mirari's Wake just to try and stay in the game. We'll put a Wild Growth onto the Scattered Groves just to get some more mana. And then I think we just need to get some creatures into play. The Ugin has gone down now, so yeah, we'll just get down some creatures. That way we can actually block the Notion Thief. And then might as well play the Emeria the Sky Ruin. 1 planes away from that. But it turns out shuffling our graveyard around kept us off of that anyway. Let's just dump the Smothering Tithe. I don't think that's going to be too much use to us. Probably keep the Stony Silence out of play now because we need the help from Ghirapur to take out this Grixis player, although I don't think we're going to be taking them out. The Notion Thief has truly kept them in this game. Probably seen the commander here. Yep. And in the last game we saw means of Nicol Bolas dealing direct damage to people and having them discard their entire hand. I don't know if they can do that with 2 mana though. Just going for a Treasure Cruise and delving a bunch of stuff. Taking them up to 9 cards in hand. And then forcing us to block with the Notion Thief. That will allow us to draw cards again, so I will absolutely trade there. And the Ghirapur player, activating the treasure map again at the end of the turn. We really need to get into removal for that Nicol Bolas player next turn. Yeah, the Decoction module coming straight back out, and then that's another threat. Hope of Ghirapur. I don't know if our opponent is wise enough to leave us in play, whilst the Nicol Bolas player is going rampant. So that's another threat that we need to worry about. Then another activation during our opponent's turn on the treasure map. And they played a Seagate Wreckage as well. Lignify onto Nicol Bolas works. Let's first of all go for Karametra. That will draw us a card, but it will also allow us to look for forests and plains every time we cast a creature spell. And like I said before, we are a plains away from activating Emeria. Now, I'd like the Ground Seal in play as well, because I think this Grixis player is going to try and play a lot of stuff out of the graveyard. We want Privileged Position in play. Yeah, so I think we can go for the Eidolon of Blossoms here. And with Karametra, we will look for a plains, and we'll get that Shockland into play tapped. Birds of Paradise is a flyer that the Hope of Ghirapur cannot get past, hopefully. Let's play the Privileged Position. And there's a Windswept Heath that we cannot activate, thanks to us being very low on life. We'll go for Ground Seal first of all, and that will draw us some more cards. Well, there's a draw. Sarah's Sanctum. Tap and add white for each enchantment you control. We will definitely play that. We haven't played a land this turn. We get 7 mana from that currently. Alright, we need to get the Birds of Paradise in play. In fact, let's go for the Lignify onto Hope of Ghirapur. And I quite like that Aura Shards as well. So let's go for the Aura Shards that we just drew into. And there's Song of the Dryads, that's really good as well. We'll just go for Journey to Nowhere. And Journey to Nowhere, obviously targeting the Nicol Bolas. And now I don't feel too bad about a Stony Silence. And then there's the Reliquary Tower. Can't play that this turn, unfortunately. And as far as I can tell, there's nothing else we can do, so let's let that mana go away, and then we will swing in again at the Grixis player and see if they've got anything else for us. Now, Ground Seal is cards in graveyards can't be the targets of spells or abilities. Yeah, I misremembered that. So Nicol Bolas can still play cards out of the graveyard. I don't have Rest in Peace in the deck anymore because I wanted to include things like Replenish, and it's a bit of a nombo if we have Rest in Peace in play, but might be a card I have to put in here because it's something that we could always not play if we don't think any of our opponents are playing out of the graveyard. And the Nicol Bolas player decided to go AFK. Clearly they were salty about us not being knocked out of the game there. Let's see if the Hope of Ghirapur player has... Nope, they have walked away from the computer as well. So we appear to have induced some salt there. The Goblin player shouldn't have started a game if they were going to get called away. I've voiced this frustration before, and some people don't like it when I say this, but I don't think you should sit down to have a multiplayer game with people online if you're just going to pull out of the game whenever you feel like it, basically, because you're messing around with other people's experience. I understand that some people have genuine emergencies and people have kids and all the rest of it, but if you've got kids running around at home and you need to be looking after them, then you shouldn't be sitting down to play a video game in the first place. If you've got the house to yourself and fancy sitting down and playing a game of Commander, fair enough. But you've got to get all your stuff in order first and then make sure that you can sit down and actually concentrate on the game and not ruin anyone else's experience. And it seems to be a common occurrence that anonymity allows people to just pull out whenever they want, and social consequences be damned because there aren't any, because you're just an avatar online. But situations like this do annoy me, and trying to get a full multiplayer game going on Magic Online is quite tortuous. So I think in the next, I don't know, 6 to 12 months, depending on when I set it all up, we should get something like a Discord and a Patreon going, something like that, so that we can all join together as a group of people on the EDH channel and maybe get some games going together so that we're all on the same wavelength and we all know that no one is going to quit early unless there genuinely is an actual emergency, which most of the time on Magic Online I don't believe for a second that they are genuine emergencies. I think that it's people getting salty and just walking away, and I think that it's people seeing that the game isn't quite going to go their way, or they're getting called away from the computer by their mother because their food's ready, or whatever it is. I think that most of the time that's the case, and it's actually not a phone call from their spouse saying, oh, I've fallen down and broken my leg, can you come to the hospital? You know? But that's just me. Maybe I'm more cynical of the human race than most people, I don't know. Anyway, I've probably said at the beginning of this video that it wasn't a complete video, so that's up to you if you've decided to watch in this far. Just wanted to get a little test run going before I am on the EDH lounge tomorrow when I'm recording this. So hopefully the deck runs as well as it did in this game. Just need to make a few tweaks, I think. I'm tribalkai on the EDH channel. Thank you for watching.